Hi, welcome back to Andeville episode 2. Today we're going to be upgrading this blacksmith. To start off with, I want to do a little tour of the building and just show you some of the details that have been put in here with the original build by Andy and his team. Okay, so the first space we have here is actually the workshop. So this has got his smeltery, his anvil, his grindstone. This is where he does his work, sharpens and heats up tools and swords. As we come around to the front of the building, we've got this lovely front porch and nice blue colour and the extra detailing on the supports here. And inside the house, we've got some pretty simple living here. I like what they've done with the coral floor. I'm not sure if we'll use it. We've got a couple of single beds, a chest, and bookshelves. We also have a little attic upstairs with storage and a few little cobwebs. Coming over to the left side of the building, we can see there's some iron storage here. There's also some scaffolding where it looks like they're doing some work on that front porch. I want to sort of keep both of those ideas. It is the roof though that grabbed my attention, and it feels like Andy and his team were sort of trying to emulate some thatched roofing here, which is something we can do really well with Conquest. We've got the sea pickles he's used on the roof plus the little fence blocks. So we're absolutely going to lean into that with the power of the Conquest blocks. Okay, so let's get to that time lapse and that storytelling part of the build. When trying to convert this blacksmith, there were two elements to the build that I found quite striking. The first was the obvious bright blue colour of the walls, and the second was the smaller size of the house that the blacksmith is in. These are two factors that would need definition within the story. The first question I asked was, why are the walls so blue and how do they make them like that? Well, dyeing the plaster a blue colour would be the obvious answer, but to expand on that, I'm going to have a blueberry bush that grows in the area, much like the copperweed does in Ascot. The berries would be in no way edible and would cause hallucinations and poisoning for those that eat them, but they do produce a strong blue dye. Then I started to think about why they would use them on their walls, and maybe the berries make the plaster stickier and easier to render. If there was a free renewable source of adhesive for the plaster, then the builders would definitely take advantage of that. The dye itself would be less likely to be used in clothing because of this, but the berries themselves could also become an export for the town. The question of the smaller scale property for a blacksmith could be simply answered by understanding the man who works here. I've decided to make the blacksmith an industrious yet simple man who likes to be by himself. Despite the wealth his profession would bring in, he does not see the need for fancy adornments or attire. His lack of want to interact with his fellow man has meant that he has never taken an apprentice, and all smithing apprenticeships are handled over at the smeltery. The reason he gets away with this antisocial behaviour is the quality of his work is second to none. His one-eyed approach to his craft lends a quality to his smithing that few in Caelum can match. Unfortunately, this hermit lifestyle is soon to come under some scrutiny as he resists any attempt by the Lords of Andeville to marry him off. They are desperate for him to have an heir or to pass his skill on to another through an apprenticeship, but the blacksmith simply refuses. If there was a way he could throw himself into his smithing without other human interaction, he would, but the fact remains, without people there would be no need for farming tools, horseshoes, or weaponry, which means his supply of malleable iron would quickly evaporate. The lord of the land, not wanting to lose the blacksmith's incredible skill set, is about to hatch a plan to force the blacksmith's hand into marriage. He is going to increase taxation on iron, raising the blacksmith's cost of running his business, but in the same moment offer the smith a title through marriage to one of the local lordling's daughters. Unfortunately, the lord simply doesn't understand the blacksmith's motivation for existence and figures that he would have to be a fool to reject this generous offer. The blacksmith will be faced with a decision to either move ahead with the lord's offer or simply pack up and leave for another town to ply his trade. The lord, however, would not allow such a talented man to make money for someone else, and the two will no doubt come to an impasse where the smith may face prison, or worse if he decides to try and leave. An unstoppable force striking an immovable object, but in this case, one of them has to give. Symbolically, this is what happens when the hammer hits the anvil. If it happens enough times, the hammer usually breaks. The blacksmith is the hammer and the lord is the anvil, and the simple life of the lone smith is about to drastically change one way or another. What do you think the smith's choice will be? Alright, so here we are back at the blacksmith. Now, I tried to stay true to form with the original builds. I didn't want to sort of skew too far. That was the challenge, was to try and sort of conquestify these builds a little bit without completely remaking them. It has lent itself to a pretty unique style of roof, which we've got here. But to be honest, I quite like it with the bright blue as well. Very interesting feel to it. I think it looks pretty good. Probably do a little bit of fix-up work with it. If we go down here, we can see the blacksmith area is really shaped up quite nicely with the Conquest blocks. Now, one thing Conquest does very well is make a blacksmith. So this was a pretty easy transition. We've got a couple of little victory mod blocks in here with the iron as well and some of the tools and things like that. But overall, I think it turned out really well. I like the smelter here. The smelter with the bellows on the side, I think that looks really nice. It's a definite upgrade from the previous one. Using the Conquest tool set that we've got, it's worked out really, really well. Now if we go on the inside, which was the next part that we had a look at, we can see the interiors. I still kept them nice and simple. Single bed, the blacksmith lives here by himself. I actually didn't need to change anything upstairs at all. I just sort of left that being the space that it is. We've got our little fireplace here that he would do some cooking inside of as well. Pretty basic sort of lifestyle for the blacksmith. He's just happy working away in his workshop out there. Come out this way, you can see I've got the deck being fixed, and I thought, well, we might as well put some tools in place to make it look like they're actually repairing the deck on the side here. And I think that's a nice little touch, a nice feature that was already there that we've been able to elevate a little bit. We got a little storage area here like we had with the iron ingots using the Victory mod and Conquest crate blocks here. They look very, very cool. It really does help sort of generate a little bit of atmosphere. The little stove thing that was on the side that was connected to the chimney on the outside, I decided possibly that was being used for cooking, as all the tool sets were on the other side of the building. So we've got our little cooking station here. I've got 3 stools here. I don't think this would be necessarily used by the blacksmith, but potentially by the other people that live here, as just like a little space where they've set themselves up to sort of cook a meal, because he's a pretty isolated man. He's not going to come out here and share this. But it's sort of fairly well connected with the charcoal space here that we're going to upgrade soon. If we come around the back, we've got the little berry bush here. We've just used the grapevine bush, but we've got the little berry bush that they would use to dye and stain the blue colour of the render on the plaster here. That's probably going to be fairly prevalent through the space, a little bit like the copperweed. I like to sort of theme some plants within the areas of each build that I do. I think it adds like a nice little element. But overall, I think it's actually come up really good. I think as an upgrade, we've definitely stepped it up from the previous sort of build style. I've also managed to stay true to the actual original building as well, I think, and maintained a lot of the elements there. I hope you guys have liked this transformation. I've really enjoyed doing it. I really look forward to doing some of the other buildings within Andeville as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you've made it this far into the video, could you drop us a like? It does really help out the channel, get a little bit more exposure as we work really hard to try and develop this channel for a Conquest building. There's going to be a lot more of it. You'll see a lot more of Victory mod, so if there's any Conquestors out there that are looking for an extra mod, we're not too far off of a public release. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching episode 2 of Andeville. We'll see you next time.